crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with host David Lamb and the attorneys of Hollis Wright.
Good evening and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you for joining us tonight. Got a really interesting topic. Not sure we've done a show on this particular topic, so I'm really excited about tonight's show and what we're going to get into. Really do believe it's going to be interesting to you. Before we get going, kind of some ground rules here. You'll see displayed on the bottom of the screen throughout the program ways you can join our conversation. Would love to have you do so. Also, attorneys from Hollis Wright are standing by live all throughout the program tonight. So for the next half hour, if a question pops into your mind and you'd like some free, confidential, and off-air legal advice, all you have to do is pick up the phone and give them a call. The numbers to know, 844-LAW-TALK, 844-LAW-TALK. That's the number you can always reach Hollis Wright with. That number, that is 844-529-8255, or locally here in the Birmingham area, 205-324-3600. Carter Clay from Hollis Wright here to lead our conversation. Good to see you, my friend. You all right?
Good to see you, David. I'm doing great. Hope you are.
I am. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have covered the topic of immigration on the show in the past, but we've never covered the subtopic or areas that we're going to be covering today or this evening related to immigration. And before we got started this evening, I wanted to study these materials because it's really a new area of law that I've really not had any exposure or familiarity to. You know, we've got a president right now, President Trump, who really has brought the immigration issue to the forefront, talking about building the wall and otherwise controlling illegal immigration and even reducing and controlling the extent to which we have legal immigrants come here. So this topic has been in the news a lot with President Trump. Now, what we are not going to do here this evening, although it might be more entertaining, we're not going to debate the social implications of immigration, and we're not going to debate policies associated with immigration. What we are going to do, because we've got a fantastic guest to cover this topic, we're going to cover the laws that are on the books right now and what the rights and responsibilities are of legal immigrants that come here, the different classifications of immigrants that we have coming to our country, and the rights that they have once they get here, and the rights that we as a country have related to if they're here, what they have to live up to stay here, or otherwise they might get deported or sent back home. And so we've got a fantastic guest with us, Danny Upton, who's an attorney here in town who practices in this area. Danny, thank you so much for joining us here this evening and helping us navigate what can be a fairly complicated and complex area of the law.
Well, thank you all for having us. And immigration is definitely Byzantine in its complexity, and it's something that most of us as American citizens have really very little familiarity with. Unfortunately, that doesn't keep us from having really strong opinions. And it seems oftentimes that our opinions about immigration are in inverse proportion to what we actually know about current immigration policies and procedures. So I hope that maybe we can tip the scales in the other direction by the end of the conversation.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about you professionally, how long you've been practicing law, and how did you get started practicing in this particular area?
Well, my original plan was to be a United Methodist minister, but my mother said preachers don't make any money, and I need somebody to take care of me when I get old. So you can imagine her delight when I went to law school rather than seminary, and then you can imagine her profound disappointment when I got out and immediately started working for the United Methodist Church as an immigration attorney, representing particularly vulnerable immigrants like women and children who are victims of domestic abuse or human trafficking or sexual exploitation, refugees and asylum seekers that were victims of persecution on account of their race or religion or political opinion, and low-income families that were divided by international borders. So I worked in the nonprofit sector for the first more than a decade of my career. I graduated from the University of Alabama in 2002, and in 2014 I went into private practice with Centro Legal, which is exactly where I am today.
Wow, that's an impressive background. So I guess from my lay point of view, and probably perhaps from the viewers as well, we tend to classify immigrants as legal immigrants or illegal immigrants. And I know that's sort of a simplistic way to view things, but we want to talk about some specific areas this evening, and you mentioned sex trafficking a minute ago. I know that that is an issue that is really plaguing not only Alabama, but really our entire country right now. It's a real problem that law enforcement is trying to get a hold of in apprehending people that are engaged in those types of activities. And there's a particular area that really stood out to me in the production materials that we have called U visa. Now, first of all, what is a general kind of garden variety visa, and then talk a little bit about what a U visa is?
Sure. Well, broadly speaking, we have maybe 3 categories of immigration benefits. We have employment-based benefits, we have family-based benefits, and then we have humanitarian benefits. The U visa itself is for victims of serious crimes who are assisting law enforcement in the investigation and prosecution of those crimes. The U visa would belong to the humanitarian benefits. We also have, incidentally, a T visa, which is for victims of severe forms of human trafficking. So not just, your grandmother's variety of human trafficking, but severe forms of human trafficking are eligible for a T visa. The U visa in particular is a non-immigrant visa. That means it is ostensibly for people who intend to return to their country of origin at the end of their authorized period of stay. But interestingly, at the end of the 4 years that the U visa is valid, there is a mechanism for the approved U applicant to become an immigrant, to obtain a green card, which grants permission to live and work permanently in the United States. So not all of our immigrants, technically speaking, are immigrants. Many of them, students, tourists, et cetera, temporary workers, are non-immigrants. That is, they are people who intend to return at the end of their authorized period of stay. The word immigrant within the act means somebody who is coming to the United States to stay. And we also have refugees and asylum seekers who are technically not immigrants because their intention isn't to come and stay. Their intention is to escape persecution on account of some protected characteristic. So we, as lay people, use language in sloppy ways that, as practitioners, we wouldn't do, and it's all perfectly fine. But the one term that I would really like for us to disabuse ourselves of is this term illegal immigrant, which is just a nasty slur that is inaccurate. As often as it's accurate, it's better to refer to undocumented people as undocumented because in fact 40% of them likely came to the United States legally.
Yeah, I think we're headed to a break.
We do. Let's step aside right there. This is going to be interesting. I feel like we're ripping this from the headlines, some of what we're talking about here. Let's head to break. As we do so, I want to remind you about Hollis Wright all over social media. Wherever you are, they are when it comes to social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Go there, check them out. Just search Hollis Wright and you'll be able to find them. Just a great follow for some good info and education when it comes to legal matters and things that we believe are important to you. Let's head to break. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
If you sustain an on-the-job injury, it can devastate you and your family. That's when you need the help of Hollis Wright. Our attorneys are right here in Birmingham and have decades of experience representing injured victims. We have handled on-the-job injury cases in every county throughout this great state and would be proud to help you. If you've been injured in an accident, always make Hollis Wright the first law firm you call. At Hollis Wright, results matter.
I started practicing law more than 20 years ago with a mission: advocate for personal injury victims in their darkest days. Recognizing that there were others who stood with me in that purpose, we built the Hollis Wright team from the ground up. Now with 25 employees here to help personal injury victims when they need it the most, our team is here for you. If you've been injured in an accident, always make Hollis Wright the first law firm you call. At Hollis Wright, results matter.
Welcome back into the attorneys. Before we get back to the conversation, just a reminder, we'd love to have you join our conversation and take advantage of the opportunity to speak with the attorneys from Hollis Wright. To do that, the number you need to know is 844-LAW-TALK, 844-529-8255, or locally 205-324-3600. Carter?
Yeah, Danny, I want to make sure that I understand this and the viewers understand it as well. So when we talk about individuals getting a U visa or perhaps a T visa, are these individuals who would otherwise be considered to be here illegally?
Perhaps. They could be here illegally, or they could be here as non-immigrants with some sort of temporary status. It's really unimportant. What Congress did was to identify that there are a lot of barriers that impede particularly immigrants from accessing the justice system. So it could be the lack of English proficiency, a lack of financial resources, a lack of familiarity with American legal customs. It could be their own lack of status and their fear in reporting crimes that they have either witnessed or been victim to. It may be their fear of self-reporting their own lack of immigration status in the process, and what sort of negative consequences could follow from that. So Congress created the U visa as a tool for law enforcement to incentivize the cooperation of people who would otherwise perhaps be reluctant witnesses. I actually had a specific case from Michigan of parents whose child was sexually abused by a neighbor, and the parents never reported the abuse because they were fearful that in reporting the abuse they would trigger a set of processes that would ultimately result in the entire family's removal from the United States. And that fear is real, and it's not altogether irrational. And so this is a way that that we can overcome that fear and foster a relationship of trust between our law enforcement agencies and the communities that they serve and protect.
So it's a way to send a message to that particular community who might be worried, hey, I'm here illegally. I don't want to turn this person in for this or for that particular crime because I'm worried that they'll find out that I'm not even supposed to be here and I may wind up getting deported as well. But it allows them to be able to disclose that type of information, perhaps be a witness to a crime without fear or reprisal of them being deported.
That's exactly right. We had a case in Birmingham of an attorney who put 300 of his own clients into deportation proceedings without their knowledge or consent, so that he could then turn around and charge them thousands of dollars apiece to represent them in the same deportation proceedings that he had caused to be initiated.
And I take it because you mentioned that it was uncovered and discovered that he was engaged in this activity.
He ended up being disbarred for something totally unrelated. And when he
sounds like a great guy.
He was. Yeah. I mean, it's literally like the worst thing you can imagine an immigration attorney doing, right?
Yeah.
And when he was disbarred, he couldn't go to immigration court with his clients anymore. One of his assistants I had volunteered with once upon a time, and so I called up and I said, I'll go with the clients for free. You won't charge the firm or the clients anything. And so he sent me several case files, which might not have meant a lot to a lot of people, but it was immediately obvious to me what he had done. He had filed fraudulent asylum applications, knowing that they would be denied and that the denial would automatically result in the initiation of deportation proceedings. And so when I discovered this, I immediately took the files to the district attorney, and several months later, the sheriff raided his office and seized all of the files, and here we are, 4 years later.
Wow, wow. What is the process for applying for a U visa, and are there particular requirements or criteria that the person has to meet in order to be eligible?
Yes, there are a whole lot. First off, you have to get a certification from either the judge in the case or the prosecutor or the arresting agency, the agency taking the report anyway, that the applicant has been a victim of a qualifying crime. We're talking about the most serious of criminal offenses, violent crimes, sexual crimes, and a few sort of political crimes like witness tampering and obstruction of justice and perjury, that sort of thing. And so anyone who has been a victim of one of the statutorily enumerated offenses for whom law enforcement has signed this certification that the applicant has been a victim, has information about the criminal activity, and has shared that information with law enforcement to assist in the investigation or prosecution, is then able to take the certification and send it to the United States Department of Homeland Security and request classification as a U non-immigrant. At the adjudication at this point takes about 4.5 years, and the applications are adjudicated in the order that they're received. Upon approval, the applicant receives a 4-year visa with the possibility of applying for permanent resident status at the end.
Wow, wow.
If, as you're talking, it's amazing what you're doing, for one thing. But second of all, if there's a language barrier and there's a distrust of the system, how do they ever get to you? How do they show up on your doorstep?
Word of mouth, honestly. When I first arrived at our firm, we ran ads and everything like that, but there is such a dearth of service providers. There's such a dearth of practitioners who are able to speak the language. Yeah. And even though I'm a working class white boy from rural North Alabama, thinking that I was going to go into the ministry, I learned a foreign language, and I thought, I could be a foreign missionary or something, and got out of law school at the end feeling all dressed up with nowhere to go, and I still wanted very much to use my license and my skills in a way that would be meaningful, would make the world a better place. I went to law school thinking of the law as a higher calling and as a way to be in service, and I think when you approach your work in that way, folks know the difference, right. And then those folks tell their folks, and I will never run ads ever again because the need is so overwhelming, and I'm only one person, and it's really hard sometimes to stop and to say no, and that's what we have to do.
Yeah. Let's step aside. Sure. Our final break of the evening. We're coming back. We got one more segment here remaining. Stay with us. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm attorney John Spade with the Hollis Wright Law Firm. If you have ever had a personal injury claim, the attorney handling your case has likely told you that a portion of your settlement would have to be used to pay back your health insurance company for the medical bills that they paid relating to your injuries. This is called subrogation. In this week's Legal 411, we are answering the question, what is subrogation and how does it affect your personal injury claim? When you purchase health insurance, you sign a contract with the health insurance company, which provides that in exchange for you paying a monthly premium, the insurance company will pay your medical bills when you're injured. Now, that contract has a paragraph that gives your health insurance company the right to seek repayment for the medical bills they paid if you in turn use those medical bills as a basis to recover from a third party that caused your injury. The idea is that your health insurance company would not have had to pay your medical bills if it weren't for the wrongdoing of the third party. Now, health insurance companies routinely put attorneys on notice of their subrogation claims by outlining exactly which medical payments the health insurance company is claiming a subrogation claim for and for what amounts. Throughout the handling of your case, your attorney should be aware of the amount of subrogation your health insurance company is claiming and whether all the claimed subrogation is related to your underlying personal injury case. That way, if your case resolves, your attorney can then negotiate a reduction of the health insurance company's subrogation claim. Subrogation is one of the many moving parts that can affect your personal injury settlement and what you stand to recover. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. And remember, a confident lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and our promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on WVTM 13.
Welcome back in to The Attorneys. Just a fascinating conversation tonight. 7 minutes remaining. So if you have questions about this subject matter or something else, just a few minutes remaining to pick up the phone and give the attorneys from Hollis Wright a call who are standing by. Carter?
Yeah, Danny, in terms of representing these individuals who might be eligible for a U visa, what exactly is your role as a lawyer representing them? I mean, are you helping them figure out how to go about getting the U visa, filling out the paperwork, consulting with them about the eligibility requirements to put them in the best position possible to get the U visa? Is that what your role is here?
That's exactly right. And then, requesting the certification from the relevant law enforcement agency. There's sometimes a bit of education that has to happen then because not all agencies are aware of the availability of this tool. And then the actual filing of the application and a lot of hand-holding that goes on because we're talking about victims, many of whom have been traumatized by the experience, all of whom statutorily are required to prove that they suffered a significant injury, either physical or psychological, as a result of their victimization. So, what does that mean exactly? That's where the lawyers come in to be able to prove what all, give content to what's otherwise just a lot of abstractions.
Is there typically a hearing in front of some type of administrative law judge that you have to go to attend where a judge will decide whether or not the U visa is issued?
So all of the U visas historically are adjudicated at the Vermont Service Center of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is part of the Department of Homeland Security. But a lot of people may also be in removal proceedings. In fact, I'm representing about 100 respondents in removal proceedings, that is deportation proceedings in Atlanta right now. And so there are a lot of hearings in that regard. But interestingly, the Immigration Court does not adjudicate the U visa applications. The Immigration Court belongs to the Department of Justice. The Immigration Service, which processes the applications for U visas, belongs to the Department of Homeland Security. So there's all this interagency juggling that has to happen as well. So we do all of that with regard to family-based immigration and then those sorts of humanitarian benefits like the U visa.
All right, I want to shift topics for a minute and talk a little bit about the DREAM Act, or DACA. That is something that has been all over the news, especially since President Trump took office, and there's been a lot of topics up for conversation about that. What is DACA or the DREAM Act?
Yeah, so the DREAM Act is a bit of legislation that probably could have passed as early as the Bush administration, the second Bush administration, which pertains to immigrant children who were brought here as children and who have been raised here, educated here. They are American in every way except on paper, and the DREAM Act would put those children on the path to becoming permanent residents and eventually U.S. citizens. The DREAM Act was never passed into law, and so President Obama signed an executive order creating DACA, which is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which gave them temporary relief from deportation. President Trump has indicated that he wanted to end the program, and it's been tied up in litigation ever since. But we will receive the final word from the Supreme Court this spring, and I suspect that DACA's days are numbered, frankly. But the Dreamers are the one segment of the overall undocumented population that enjoys a great deal of support, bipartisan support. And so one way or the other, I think this could push the members of Congress to act, to pass the DREAM Act or something like it in a way that would create a permanent solution to what's a serious problem.
Because as I understand it, there's several hundred thousands of kids or individuals that are, I guess, fall into this DREAM Act category in terms of their age. And of course, if it ends, what happens to those individuals? Are now they subject to deportation? Are they now considered illegal immigrants and no longer allowed to be here?
That's exactly what happens. We're talking about 600 to 800,000 who applied for DACA and received it, and several thousand more who would be eligible who just never applied because they were fearful. So we're talking about 1 million plus kids, and it's not just a problem for those individuals, but it's also for their U.S. citizen spouses and children. It's also a problem for their employers. We're talking about attorneys. We're talking about nurses. We're talking about people with skills that cannot be easily replaced. Certainly not with the English language fluency and the cultural proficiency that Dreamers have as people who've been educated and raised in the United States.
This 30 minutes it's not long enough. We got to have Danny back for sure. But we have less than 2 minutes remaining. So just a final thought from the both of you. And Danny, if you would, you go first, please.
At our office, we fight for immigrants. We fight for immigrant victims of crime because whenever a perpetrator is allowed to offend with impunity, that isn't just a problem for immigrants. It means necessarily that there's a dangerous person on the streets who is a threat to you and to me and to every viewer out there at home. And so that's why we do the work that we do on behalf of immigrant victims of crime, and I think it's a fight worth fighting.
Absolutely, and I think I would be remiss to not say that if there are viewers out there that are victims of these types of crimes who may be eligible for a U visa who are here otherwise illegally, to give Danny Upton a call or somebody in his firm a call, because you may be able to help them. So I think that's the final thought that I'd like to leave the viewers.
Yeah, and as always, you guys say this quite a bit, but if you forget Danny's name or the name of his firm, just come to Hollis Wright and you'd be glad to pass them along.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Danny, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great to meet you, and a really interesting conversation tonight. So thanks to you for joining us, and thank you as well. As we kind of wrap things up, don't forget, if what was discussed tonight is pertinent to you, even though we're going off the air, get in touch with Hollis Wright, 844-LAW-TALK, and they'll get you to Danny and his team and get you the help that you need and deserve. We appreciate you being with us as always, and we'll look for you next time right here on The Attorneys. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.